Hello everybody, yes I am still alive and I am back here with a brand new video to show you the worst and best games that I played in 2014. I played so many games last year that in fact that narrowing them down was as tricky as hell, but I managed it in the end, so let's get right to it with the worst games I had to suffer through. Hexals. I'm going to lump all three games of this series into one because they are essentially the same game with only a few minor differences between them. If you've seen the trailers for them, you can pretty much tell what they are. They're a kind of hexagonal version of Minesweeper. But that's not to say that they're bad. In fact, the only reason they're on the bad list is kind of by default. Personally, I kind of like this game. It's a little more complicated than six-sided Minesweepers, of course. And the style they have in the game is very nice. It frankly looks a lot better than the Minesweeper you'll get with Windows. But at the end of the day, it pretty much is just Minesweeper. It's still good fun, but ultimately it is kind of limited in what you can do. That being said, if you only wanted to pick up one game in the series, pick up the last one, Hexals Infinite, because it contains a random generator that will just pull a level out of the ether and allow you to play it, thus extending the lifespan of the game almost indefinitely. Lifeless Planet. I bought this game when I saw it show up on Steam because it seemed to have a premise that I found intriguing. You're a lone astronaut that crash lands on a planet that is supposed to have life on it, only it doesn't. A little bit of exploration suddenly discovers an abandoned Russian town. Needless to say, it's an intriguing premise, and for the most part the game is curious enough to keep you going all the way to the end. But the gameplay is barely passable. While it's not buggy or glitchy in any way, it does require a lot of rather uneven platforming. And although the storyline is intriguing, its ultimate conclusion is a little confusing. I think I was able to work it out after thinking about it for a while, but by and large, I was just underwhelmed by the whole premise. It had potential, but unfortunately, I don't think it used it. Spacebase DF9. All in all, this game isn't terrible, but it is unfinished. The developers have literally decided, yep, that's enough, and releasing all the code to the community to let us pick up the rest of the work. That's not how you make a good video game. And it really annoys me because this game has so much potential. This game could have been a new Theme Hospital type, set in space. But it lacks the sense of humor that Theme Hospital has, and frankly, it lacks the sense of polish that Theme Hospital has. It's playable. That's the best I can say about it. But the AI is still very, very stupid and very basic. It still has many bugs left in it, and it's ultimately unfinished. Maybe if the modding community gets a hold of it, they can make it better, but as it stands, this game is a big disappointment. Rhymed Capsule. Or at least I think that's how you pronounce it. Apparently it's Swedish for Space Capsule, which could frankly have been a much better title, but this is essentially a very simplistic real-time strategy game. I'd like to say that it's casual and laid back, but frankly the difficulty curve becomes so steep towards the end that it's almost impossible to be laid back when you're actually playing it, because you're so worried about what things are going to eventually be like that you can't relax. So aside from the fact that it's too hard, the game is also too short. When I first got it, I was expecting a nice series of levels where you had to play your way through various different challenges, but you don't. You have one level that you can play on two difficulties. Seeing as the basic difficulty is too hard, it's just unplayable. This game could have had so much potential. The idea behind it is really, really nice. But at the end of the day, it's too hard and there's no replay value. And the worst game I played last year was Eleusis. At least, I think that's how you pronounce it, so apologies if I got that wrong. Let's get the nice thing out the way. The game does look pretty good, but that's about the only positive I can give you. At the end of the day, this game is boring as hell. I mean really boring. I don't even remember what the story was about. That's how little it grabbed me. The puzzles in the game are way too confusing and far too convoluted. You're literally running from one end of the area to the other, banging your head against a brick wall, literally using every item you can find on every thing you can see in the hope that it will get some kind of a reaction, because you are given no clues about what you can and can't use. There's also an option where they include enemies into the game, but the enemies are just basic. They literally appear and then walk straight towards you, and if they catch you, you're dead, and the only thing you can do is hope to run away fast enough that they won't catch you. It's just annoying that this game sets itself up like something along the lines of Penumbra or Amnesia, and because it sets its sights so high, it fails completely. Trust me, if you want to play a scary horror game with good puzzles and decently programmed AI, buy Penumbra or Amnesia. They are 1,000 times better than this. So, those were all the bad games I had to suffer through this year. Time to move on to the stuff I actually enjoyed playing. Betrayer. I was pleasantly surprised with this game. I kind of liked the look of the art style when I saw the trailers and the images online, so I gave it a punt, and I actually found a very enjoyable, if a little simplistic game. As I've already said, the colour style is very, very nice, and eventually comes down to using 3 colours, black, white and red, giving it a very good stark contrast compared to a lot of other games you'll see these days. Gameplay wise, it's kind of your basic first-person shooter using old-fashioned style weapons of bow and arrow, flintlock, pistol and rifle. It is a little monotonous in that it has you running around doing similar tasks over and over again, but fortunately the game is short enough that it doesn't really become too boring, and the game doesn't outstay its welcome. It's worth a look into if you're a fan of first-person shooters with a slightly mysterious and a touch of horror about them. Professor Layton and the Azran Legacy. I am a massive fan of the Professor Layton series, and this game is a brilliant conclusion to the latest trilogy that they've released. The story is great. It has some twists that I did see coming, but actually managed to surprise me with some twists I genuinely didn't. In terms of gameplay, of course, the game is pretty much the same as you would expect from a Layton game. They haven't really altered the formula since day one, although they did switch it up when the game moved to the 3DS. The one thing I would mention is if you haven't played a Professor Layton game before, it wouldn't be a good idea for this to be your first one. It does rely on you knowing characters from the previous 2 Layton games. So if you're looking to start the Layton game, either go back and start with the Curious Village, which was the first Layton game released, or go back to the beginning of the trilogy with Spectre's Call. Deus Ex Human Revolution Director's Cut. Believe it or not, but I don't actually play that many stealth games. So when I picked this up, I wasn't even 100% sure I was going to like it. Fortunately though, I ended up loving it. The stealth gameplay is surprisingly good, although it does require me to misuse quick save and quick load, unbelievably so. And I just generally enjoy the gameplay, wandering around and sneaking up behind people and knocking them out and dragging their body to a hiding place is surprisingly enjoyable. I do have some problems with the game though. Firstly, it feels too short. I honestly feel that the game could have benefited from being even longer, although what there is very good. And the other problem I have with it is that the ending completely sucks. Anybody who's played on this will know what I'm talking about. But if you can get over the terrible ending to the game, the gameplay in itself is very, very good and is well worth your time. The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Being a long-standing Zelda fan, I was pretty interested when they said they were going to be making a new game set in the same area as A Link to the Past, often considered the favourite among Zelda games, and all told, it turned out really well. looks really good, plays really well. The 2D mechanic, where you can turn yourself into a painting, is a nice little gimmick, and although it really is just a gimmick, does help to make the puzzles a little more interesting, and kind of adds a bit of a Portal feel to it. The one problem I have with the game is that they do change up the standard Zelda formula. Rather than getting an item in every single dungeon, you can now get them all from one location and you rent them. The problem being that when you die, all your rented items go back and you're forced to rent them again. You can buy them, which stops this happening, but it does require a lot of rupees and ultimately kind of forces you to stop dying all the time. If you do die, rather than saving, you're pretty much just required to turn it off and start from the last point you saved. All in all, that's a very small problem. They tried something new, and while it didn't work as well as the original formula, this is definitely a Zelda game you want to own. And the best game I played last year was Legend of Grimrock 2. This game is bigger and better than its original in every single way. The one problem with the original game was that it was frankly a little too linear and a little too samey. Grimrock 2 completely blows the first one out of the water. It improves on every single aspect. More and bigger areas, more classes for your players to be, more spells, more enemies. It even includes additional bosses. It just has everything you would expect a sequel to have and more. The game still looks as good as it did the first time round. In fact, it even looks better because it now has outdoor areas. Everything about this game is as good as it should have been, or better. About the only negative thing I could think to say about it is it might not be your kind of game if you don't like puzzles. But if you do like puzzles, and you do like games that are actually going to test you in ways you didn't think you could be tested, this game is for you. I cannot recommend it enough. This is a game that everyone should own. It's the kind of game that should remind you why you play video games. So, that's it for my lists. You've seen what I was doing last year. Please, by all means, leave a comment, either agreeing or disagreeing with me, as you so wish. I also mentioned at the beginning that I played a lot of games last year, and as you can see by this list on screen, these are the games that didn't make it into either list. So this is what I'm going to do. If you're interested in hearing my personal opinion on one of these video games, leave a comment and let me know. If I get enough interest in a game, I will create a short 1 minute long video detailing what I thought of that particular game. Maybe this will work out, maybe it won't, but I'm willing to experiment with the form and see what I can come up with. Aside from that, as I said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment, and hopefully I'll be out with another Let's Play soon. Take care, and I'll see you around.